It is one of the most breathtakingly beautiful ceremonies on earth. Just days after commemorating the death and passing of Pope Francis, the papacy is reborn before the world. Out of the tomb, the papacy is resurrected anew as a symbol of the transfiguration of the whole of life in the transformative death and resurrection of Christ. And 3 votes in on the fourth ballot, the 133 cardinal electors gathered in the Vatican Sistine Chapel to elect our new pope, the 267th pope, who appeared at the central window, as you saw, of St. Peter's Basilica. It is the American Cardinal Robert F. Prevost. He is now officially Pope Leo XIV. He is the first ever American pope born in Chicago. So this was truly, again, absolutely historical. We are living in unprecedented times as we speak. President Trump weighed in, of course. He tweeted out, quote, "Congratulations to Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was just named Pope. It is such an honor to realize that he is the first American Pope. What excitement. What a great honor for our country. I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV. It will be a very meaningful moment." Now, it's very interesting, the fact that he is from the United States. That does suggest that we, let's just say the conclave was concerned about, shall we say, rather practical matters, not particularly theological. There is a theological element here that we're going to get to in a moment. But I do think there was some fiscal issues that the conclave seems to want to address. The election of an American just so happens to coincide with where the majority of the world's finances are. And the Vatican, while it has, of course, enormous assets, nevertheless does have significant issues with cash flow and liquidity. That's widely recognized. Again, they've got inordinate assets, but not necessarily cash flow. And by choosing a pope from the wealthiest part of the world, that means, I think, that the Vatican believes they can avail themselves of the rich finances that come with that. I think there was a very practical aspect to this election. But there is something much deeper and much more far-reaching than that. And that's when you consider the role of what's called theopolitics and all this. So we, of course, have geopolitics, right? The balancing out of international relations. But the Catholic Church in particular, being international, being the faith of 1.4 billion people around the world, the Catholic Church has something we call theopolitics. And by this, we mean that the Pope is going to have to effectively navigate and balance out the issues that are currently polarizing the Catholic world. So what we're seeing here in the Catholic Church are dynamics that are very reflective of what's happening all over the world, particularly here in our country, and that's the clash between the people and the establishment, right? It's the vertical divide we talk about so much in this country. So we're not dealing with so much, or on this channel rather, we're not dealing so much with a left versus right divide, a horizontal divide, as we are a vertical divide, a people versus the political class, the masses versus the elite, the ruled versus the rulers. And that is the default social, political, economic, cultural, and religious division that is opening up almost everywhere in the world, particularly here in the United States, but also throughout heavily Catholic Latin America and Europe for sure. And so how this is playing out in the Catholic Church is that you have two overall wings of the church. I know it's more complicated than that, but I think for simplified purposes, there are two overall wings. You have what are called the traditionalists. So they're very much, the social conservatives. They're proponents of celebrating the Latin Mass. They're more attuned toward pre-Vatican II Catholicism. And then you have on the other side the modernists, and these are more liberal. They're more predisposed towards social justice. They see pro-life commitments as extending to immigration rights and prisoner rights and the like. And what's so fascinating here is that the Catholic Church at the parishioner level. So if we're thinking vertically now, at the level of the congregant, the level of the people, again, not so much the clergy, but at the level of the congregants, the Catholic Church is going through an extraordinary re-traditionalization. And this is where particularly young people are becoming very attracted to the ancient rites of the church. So, for example, the New York Post had a very interesting piece on young men in particular converting to Eastern Orthodoxy. That's my congregation, well, my fellowship, or whatever you want to call it, my allegiance. Here in the United States, young men in particular are very attracted to Eastern Orthodoxy, Orthodox parishes. So an 80% increase in converts in recent years. I've been seeing it in my own parish. And we're seeing the same thing in particularly traditionalist Catholic churches. Catholic churches are celebrating the Latin Mass. Again, the New York Post reported year-over-year increases of 30 to 70% in new Catholic converts, primarily being attracted to the traditionalist wing of the church. And that's very much what we're seeing, interestingly enough, all throughout the UK. So Catholic Church membership is actually on the course to surpass Anglican Church membership for the first time in centuries, literally for the first time since Henry VIII. So we're seeing something even more extraordinary in France. Just over the Easter weekend alone, there was a record-breaking 17,800 convert baptisms across the country. There were nearly 10,400 adult baptisms, an astonishing 7,400 baptisms of young people between the ages of 11 and 17. And again, note these are converts. These are not adults. These are adults and young people who are getting baptized for the very first time. So baptisms are up 45% in France from this time last year in 2024. But the key here is that the momentum, the dynamism in the church right now is clearly with the traditionalists. However, right, the leadership, the conclave, is overwhelmingly modernist. 85% of the cardinals were appointed by Pope Francis, and Pope Francis was very, well, let's just be blunt. Let's use the real term. He was very liberal, and he appointed a number of comparably modernist liberal cardinals. But again, the energy, the inertia, and ironically, the finances in the church are on the side of the traditionalists. And so the primary theopolitical issue here for this new pope is how is he going to reconcile those two dynamics, the modernist and the traditionalist? And as far as this conclave is concerned, 85% Francis-influenced conclave, what they made absolutely clear with the selection of Prevost, they want to continue down the path of Francis. They wanted a Francis 2.0. They wanted to continue down the path of the more modernist, progressive wing of the church, at least when it comes to its clergy, when it comes to its leadership, because that's exactly what I believe Prevost is going to give them. He is rather liberal as far as Catholics go. If you don't know, I'll give you a couple of samples of what Prevost has said in the past about our civilizationalist populism. He has been very, very critical of President Trump and Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele for their compliance in Trump's mass deportation operation. And it's ironic that the very cardinal that has been so openly critical of our nation enforcing its borders is about to take up residence inside a city fortified by walls. He's actually had a number of woke left-wing tweets in the past. He supported BLM. He denounced Trump's rhetoric towards migrants. He's tweeted some anti-gun ownership tweets. Pretty standard Libby stuff. He even joined Francis on excoriating J.D. Vance for his Ordo Amoris defense of nationalism. So if you remember, J.D., who's a devout Catholic, he espoused a classical Augustinian tradition for why we actually enforce our borders. Something, again, that Francis, who lived behind very large walls that surrounded Vatican cities, simply despised for other countries. But J.D. argued that classically, we are supposed to love God and then love our families and our neighbors and our nation, right? It's love God, love neighbor, family, nation, and so forth. That's the Ordo Amoris. And then that love, that exact same love, extends out to other nations. We lock our doors at night, not because we hate the people on the outside, but because we love the people on the inside. That's Ordo Amoris. And I assure you, Francis and now Leo the 14th, I assure you, they both took and will take proper precautionary steps to secure the safety of those closest to them. Guarantee it. It's called Ordo Amoris. You have a responsibility to those in your proximity. Nevertheless, Prevost decided to go full woke against JD and say, there is no ordered loves when it comes to my neighbors, as he sits behind Secret Service, who's not just protecting him, but protecting those around him. Interesting. All that said, as it turns out, he is a registered Republican. Interestingly enough, and apparently has voted in Republican primaries. So he at least has one redeeming quality here. Oh, no, I don't know how much I can say Republicans are redeeming. Now, needless to say, this was not the guy I was rooting for. I'll just come out and say, I'm not Catholic. I'm Eastern Orthodox. We share a lot in common, but we don't have, in Orthodoxy, we don't have a pope, largely for this reason. We're conciliar in our church government. In other words, our church government is by the panoply of bishops, not one. But that said, I was hoping for someone who would be much more of an effective bridge between the traditionalists on the one side and the modernists on the other. So I was hoping for Cardinal Robert Sarra of Guinea, or the Hungarian Cardinal Peter Erdo, the Italian Secretary of State for the Vatican, Pietro Parolin. I think he would have been very good. Cardinal Pizzaballa. He was considered actually the ideal via media between the traditionalists and the modernists. He would have been a very unifying figure. Of course, the jury's still out for the new Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. We'll have to see how he governs. But as it stands, based on his prior positions, he is likely to be more or less a Francis 2.0. And no friend to the rising civilizationalist movement, which is not going to be very healthy, I think, for the Catholic Church, or at least potentially will not be very healthy. And I think we could see, actually, there is going to be, shall we say, an incentive for him to be friendly, at least to the traditionalist wing within the Catholic communion. And that's where I think where we could see how these two dynamics, the financial, practical dynamic and the theopolitical dynamic, come together. Steve Bannon was actually weighing in on this a couple of weeks back. So Bannon's, of course, a traditionalist Catholic, and he's been warning that were the conclave to pick another Francis, they would be risking creating a schism in the church, where the church is the most vibrant, the traditionalist wing. But the problem there is that if the conclave were to snub the traditionalists, it's not just that wing of the party that will snub them in return, but they can also expect any funds that they were hoping to come from the United States to largely dry up. Right? So even if there weren't a split, there would be at the very least a financial revolt against Rome in that case. So that said, there is a very real practical incentive for the new Pope, Pope Leo, to appease the traditionalists. Again, I hate to be so crass here, but their cash flow depends on it. So we'll see how things develop. But either way, another day and another absolutely historic moment in the rising golden age. If the last 4 years have taught us anything, we always have to be ready for threats to our freedoms. And what makes it even worse is that those who threaten our freedoms are the very ones who've sworn to defend those freedoms. They think they can violate your right to protect your own family. They think they can force their delusions on your children, your grandchildren. They think they can control the media and hide the truth from you. But here's the key. They cannot take away what they never gave you. Self-reliance means peace of mind. That backstock of filtered water, yours. That fully charged solar generator, ready. The emergency food on your shelf, safe. especially if that food is from My Patriot Supply. Having served millions of American families, My Patriot Supply is well equipped to help yours. Go to preparewithturley.com right now and stock up on their best-selling 3-month emergency foods kit. It delivers over 2,000 calories every day. It's sealed inside ultra-durable 4-layer packaging. It lasts up to 25 years. Oh, and did I mention it's delicious? Go to preparewithturley.com and get your kit before it's too late. It ships fast and free. Preparewithturley.com.
No more pronouns. No more climate change obsession. No more emergency vaccine mandates. No more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Stephen. In a recent video, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth introduced the Less Generals, More GIs policy, aiming to streamline the U.S. military's leadership structure. Now, this initiative mandates a 20% reduction in 4-star generals and admirals, along with a 10% cut across all general and flag officer ranks. Now, the policy seeks to reallocate resources from high-ranking positions to bolster frontline troops, enhancing strategic readiness and operational effectiveness. Hegseth emphasized that this move is not punitive, but a strategic effort to optimize military efficiency and combat capability. So a good example of this is during World War II, there was approximately 1 general for every 6,000 troops. But in contrast, today, the current ratio stands at 1 general for every 1,400 service members. So Hegseth used that comparison in a recent address to argue that an increase in high-ranking officers does not necessarily translate to greater military success, emphasizing the need to streamline leadership to enhance operational effectiveness. But the obvious question here that everyone should be asking is, how did our military get so bloated in the first place? And are these reforms enough? Well, joining me today to help me think through these things is Lieutenant Colonel R. Davis Utes, retired. Davis served as an officer in the Air Force JAG Corps and now works as a constitutional attorney. He was ranked the #1 senior defense counsel in the Air Force and has won a number of awards for his service record, including the Air Force Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal, and the Trial Advocacy Award from the Association of Trial Lawyers of America. Davis, welcome. Great to see you again, my friend.
Oh, it's an honor to join you, sir.
Well, it's an honor to have you. And I am. You should know, we might have chatted about this last time we were together, but I have to go to a graduation as well. My daughter's graduating from law school. I'm very proud of her. And so hopefully, yes, we're going to have vibrant legal minds continue to flourish in our country like yours. So, but you are first and foremost a military man. So what is actually going on here? You've been on the front lines of this. So basically, from your vantage point, how bad have things gotten in our military?
You know, it's a great question, and we could spend hours talking about examples of the things that I have seen. Because I was essentially forced to retire because of the unlawful COVID mandate in December of 2022 after 20 years of service. And so it got so bad during the Biden administration that anyone who really believed in the Constitution, any Christian that wanted to continue to serve, was placed in a very, very difficult position. And they really had to compromise because the persecution was so extreme. I mean, one of the most fundamental examples was I was a reservist, a lieutenant colonel, and I was sitting in an auditorium on an Air Force base, and we were supposed to be getting anti-extremism training. And so they had this woman on the stage talking to us about what it meant to be an extremist, a dangerous extremist. And the answer was anyone who believes in an idea so much that they would be willing to give their lives or sacrifice their lives for it, that's an extremist. Now think about this concept, right?
You're in the
think
military.
You're in for a second. I'm in uniform in the military on an Air Force base, sitting next to uniformed military members, being told if I actually take my oath to the Constitution seriously, I am an extremist. That
Wow.
sounds like an absurd example, but that was just the tip of the
Wow.
iceberg of the things that we were seeing. So, aside from examples like that, people just need to understand the military, the Department of Defense as an institution, is an enormous bureaucracy that has all the same issues and the bloat that every other government agency does. You have 32,000 people that work at the Pentagon. That's larger than most cities in this country.
Wow.
Just of layers and layers of bureaucracy. So when we throw terms out there like deep state or otherwise, there's a lot, all those things, everything else we see in society, the military is just a microcosm of. And when you have a big government bureaucracy, if you're not careful, you end up with the bloat that we have. So it was incredibly bad. And there was absolutely a purge of Christians throughout the Department of Defense. So all of these things he's talking about, there is a reason Secretary Hegseth is being so forceful about these issues.
And again, if you think about it, it's so insane. I mean, because very similar to what you just said. I mean, the Christian warrior is like the prototype warrior, I mean, going all the way back, to the Middle Ages. They didn't fear death. They were valiant. They were virtuous. Whereas wokeness is, I mean, it's like the epitome of narcissism. I mean,
that's right.
I mean, the woke and warrior are mutual. It's like a square circle. They're not going to give their lives for anything. I mean, it's just so absurd. Did anyone else, to your right or to your left, recognize how absurd that definition was?
They did, and that's part of the problem. So, I mean, what this led to during the Biden administration, just even set aside everything that happened with COVID and the COVID mandate for a moment, and just think about all the other things that were occurring, the DEI, the indoctrination of all of these, anti-common sense, anti-biblical philosophies that were coming in, this religion, this woke religion that was coming into the military. That's why it was an absolute bloodbath. When you look at the numbers of people that left, the retention and recruiting numbers were so bad. Christians left. Anyone who really believed in standards or just the warfighter ethos left. And what you were left with were people that were in the military because they embraced this progressive ideology. They were holdovers in senior leadership from the Obama administration, or they were people who wanted Uncle Sam to pay for their transgender surgeries and treatment. Right. And again, that sounds crazy in a country like ours, but that's the reality of what we were dealing with in the DoD.
I'm getting a blister on my finger from yeah. How is, from your vantage point, how is Hegseth doing? What's the perception of him? I mean, the recruiting numbers seem to be just through the roof. How is he doing in the face of just this enormity of reform?
So, the challenge that he faces, that anyone faces, is the bureaucracy that's there at the Pentagon is so entrenched. It is so powerful. So at every turn, he's being pushed back against, and there's a lot of malicious compliance going on. So a couple of weeks ago, I was at the Pentagon meeting with a senior Department of Defense official, talking about some of these issues, talking about how to reinstate individuals that were pushed out under the COVID purge. And what I realized as I'm in this meeting is the reason the meeting got delayed for 2 months is this senior Department of Defense official wanted to meet with us, but his own staff kept delaying the meeting, and we had to go to him directly to get the meeting. And you see that with Secretary Hegseth. He comes out, he records a video where he calls the COVID mandate unlawful, and he calls the vaccine experimental, really significant things. He's being told by all the attorneys at the Pentagon not to do that. And then the memo that comes out doesn't mention experimental or unlawful. That's because some attorney there at the Pentagon wrote it. So he is doing a good job. He is messaging well. His desire and heart is in the right place, but he is facing the deep state at the Pentagon that's pushing back against all the things that he's trying to do to make this right. So it is extremely challenging. And the other piece is it takes time, way too long, to get all of the people he needs in these positions of trust so he can make these changes. For example, I don't know if you've heard of Matt Lohmeyer, but he was a Space Force lieutenant colonel who was fired because he wrote a book called The Irresistible Revolution about the communist takeover of the DoD. And they fired him for that, even though he didn't do anything wrong. And he's been nominated for the #2 position at the Air Force, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force. He just had his confirmation hearing, but he hasn't been approved yet. But when guys like that are there to back Hegseth up, I think we're going to see some real changes. So the desire is there, the intent is there, but it is taking time.
Yeah, absolutely. How deep does it go? It sounds to me you're saying it's rotten to the core, so we as civilians, we just don't know about the military, the DOD until it's basically too late. But there seems to be, it seems that the reform has to be absolutely holistic. Are we talking root canal here? I mean, how deep does this
yes.
go? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it has to be a total transformation. And again, there's been some great things that happens. One of the things, and I think most people in the public wouldn't necessarily understand the significance of it, but Trump fired all of the TJAGs. So that stands for the Judge Advocate General. So the senior attorney, uniform wearing attorney for each branch of the service, Trump fired them.
Wow.
Great. Now the question is who will replace them, but that's the kind of transformational change that we need. And the symptoms are everywhere. So again, just because we understand that most people in the military, many people in the military serve for the right reasons. It's incredible, the people that I had the opportunity to serve with, those that are still serving. However, they reflect society as a whole. So where are they being educated? Are they people of faith? Do they even believe in our nation? If we have government schools that are indoctrinating them with, communist rhetoric, anti-American rhetoric, then they come into the military and they're not fixed. They're just, you still have that. So all the other reforms we see that we need as a society, the revival we need as a society, it's there in the military and you see it. Why was the withdrawal from Afghanistan such a disaster? It's because there were no leaders willing to step up and speak truth from the top down. And so you had utter chaos in the way it was handled. And that's just a symptom of what Biden sowed, what the Obama administration sowed. And again, you have people that are valuing their pension and their career, their position, power more than anything else. And until we transform it, we shrink it, we get rid of general officers and go to a lean, mean force, we're going to have a whole lot of people there that need to be transformed, or we won't see long-term change.
Amazing stuff. And you're on the front lines of this. You're an advocate for patriots who've been wronged in this situation, you yourself being one of them. So what can people do to support some of the work that you and others are doing to help patriot members of the military who've been hard done, shall we say, by under these policies? Well, hopefully soon to be gone policies, but.
Yeah, I think it's all the things we would see with any other issue. It's, when you have a confirmation hearing, like someone like Matt Lohmeyer, call your senator's office. If you're listening to this, call your senator's office and say, hey, we need Matt Lohmeyer confirmed. There are others, Hung Kao, there are others that are coming in. So being politically active, being a courageous patriot and doing those things is important. One of the organizations that I work with is an organization called Stand With Warriors. So standwithwarriors.org. It was started by pastors during COVID. We were able to help hundreds and hundreds of people stay in the military and continue to serve despite what was happening by the Biden administration. And that organization is looking to support Secretary Hegseth, Lohmeyer, and others and continue to make a difference. They backed up Navy SEAL Captain Brad Geary, who's a phenomenal Christian they tried to make him a victim of the communist woke ideology when he refused to compromise on standards. And he was almost a victim of that, even though he's a great, courageous patriot and a Christian brother. So we were able to help him and get him to a retirement. We've been able to help others. Stand With Warriors was pivotal, and help Michael Cassidy, who was a reservist who tore down the Bahomet statue in the Iowa Capitol. And that's right. I was able to represent him at his Navy discharge board. The Navy tried to kick him out, take away his ability to serve as an officer in the reserves. They labeled him a dangerous domestic extremist because he did that.
Because that's what George Washington and Alexander Hamilton, of course, would do if you set up a satanic altar in one of our public spaces. Yeah, insane.
You're absolutely right. So Stand With Warriors. That's a great organization. People can check that out and see how they can support them. And again, supporting shows like yours and helping just everyday people understand how they can prepare and make a difference. Those are all the things that make a difference. It's the standard things. Don't think of the military as something different, some sacred thing that doesn't need reform and change. It does, because it's people there, and we need revival in the military just like we do throughout the rest of society.
And you've got a law firm page website, themilitarycouncil.com.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So I have a law firm. I opened it in 2019. We represent a lot of military members who are dealing with whether it's some sort of investigation, DEI issues. We also represent military members in court martial. And a big part of our work is helping people maintain their security clearances as well as fix their records when there's a problem. And security clearances are an interesting thing. Just an anecdote. There's so much discretion there that particularly during the Biden administration, if you were a Christian, you could easily be labeled an extremist, and that would put your security clearance in danger. And we successfully represented multiple people who were facing that. And it really was about their faith, what they believed, and that they were sincere in their Christian faith. They were at risk of being labeled an extremist.
And Pete suffered that, if I recall. Pete Hegseth, didn't he? He himself was a victim of that.
That's absolutely right. He was his unit was going to DC to just support operations there related to January 6th, just the inauguration.
Yep, the inauguration. Yep.
And because he has a tattoo that includes a Jerusalem cross, among other tattoos, like We the People tattoo, he was labeled a religious extremist, and his whole unit went. And even though he was the commander of that unit, he wasn't allowed to go. So he understands what was happening to Christians during the Biden administration.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, gang, as you can see, we are in good hands with people like Davis out there on the front lines. Literally, he's a first responder in his gut. So go follow Davis on X, check out his website and the law firm page, themilitarycouncil.com. And also, where did I just wrote it down? Stand with War. There it is. Stand with Wars. Was it .org?
Yes, standwithwarriors.org. That's right.
We'll have the links down below for everyone to check that out. Amazing organizations, definitely worth our support. Davis, you're awesome. Come back and visit us again anytime.
Oh, it's a true honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Davis. Gang, we all know that our country witnessed a moment we'll never forget. We saw a man get shot, stand up, fist in the air, and in defiance scream, "Fight!" Well, sadly, too many of us have lost our fight, and that's exactly how the globalists want it. They want us weak, out of shape, full of estrogen and microplastics. This is why we're so excited to partner with Choq. Choq offers a whole lineup of products formulated to increase your energy, your focus, detoxify your body, and based on clinical studies, boost your testosterone. In fact, the ingredients in the Choq Male Vitality Stack have been clinically studied to boost free testosterone by 87% in just 21 days. Unlike with gimmicky vegetable pills or powder, you're going to feel the difference, and they have the clinical studies to back it up. And right now, you can get 25% off your Choq subscription for life. You heard that right. For life. Just go to choq.com, that's spelled CHOQ.com, and use the promo code Turley. That's 25% off any subscription for life, and you can cancel anytime. Choq is made in America, and their all-American customer service team is standing by to assist you. It's time to make men's vitality great again. Get Choq today. That's choq.com, CHOQ.com. Promo code Turley. You can text or call them at 50-CHOQ-3000. That's 50-CHOQ-3000. All right, it's time to go to our hotline here. We got 717-844-5984. That is Dr. Steve's hotline. You can call in your question. Try to keep it within 30 seconds, and we'll feature it on one of our Tuesday and Thursday night shows. So here's our first question from the hotline.
Dr. Steve, this is Steve. Just wondering if Pam Bondi and the Trump administration will use Mississippi versus Johnson, the 1867 Supreme Court case, barring rogue judges from going against the president. Let me know. Thank you.
All right, Steve. Thank you. Ooh, you're giving me that's a tough one there. Yeah, Mississippi versus Johnson. You're right, 1867. A president cannot be. It was a 9-0 decision. I had to look this one up. 9-0 decision. President cannot be sued to prevent them from carrying out executive responsibilities. And it's not even dealing with tasks required by law, but also just simply that which involved executive judgment and political considerations as well. Great question. I did a quick search. I have not seen Pam Bondi reference, or at least in the search, I did not see her reference Mississippi versus Johnson. Sounds great. We should get that out there. Maybe ask her about that particularly. Again, it just seems to me they're playing a bit of the waiting game right now. So you're getting all these activist judges. And literally weeks from now, this summer, we're supposed to be getting a decision by the Supreme Court involving the president's executive powers and whether or not these federal judiciary have the right or any jurisdiction over those powers and ordering the president what he can or cannot do. So it looks like, I mean, again, if we use the past decision when it came to immunity, it looks like it's a slam dunk, at least a 5-4 decision where they're going to say, no, these judges do not have jurisdiction over the president. Again, if these judges didn't have jurisdiction over if they couldn't hold him accountable for his executive actions in those 4 indictments, they're not going to be able to hold him. They don't have jurisdiction in these cases either. So they're just playing the waiting game. And what they're doing is they're basically they're ignoring these judges, largely ignoring them and their decisions as it goes through the appellate process. And then they're just waiting on the Supreme Court to give its ruling. If not, again, there's all kinds of ways that the Trump administration could respond. I mean, if the Supreme Court delays or gives us a ruling that's insane, and one of those ways would be suspending habeas corpus, and then there would not be in any sense the illegal migrants could be deported without due process, because that's exactly what habeas corpus suspends. So we'll keep an eye on what happens, but I love it. Mississippi versus Johnson, that might be another angle to take as well.
Steve, I understand the governor of Connecticut is going to force homeschoolers to vaccinate their children and may require them to attend public schools so that all the curriculum is in alignment with the DEA, LGBTQ, etc. Anyway, I hope you'll look into that. Richard Wells, I'm a big fan of yours, and God bless.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, Connecticut's my old stomping grounds where I grew up. Yeah, I'm not, I mean, again, good luck. It's not going to hold up in the Supreme Court. This is just nonsense. The Supreme Court knocked down pretty much all of Biden's vaccine mandates and knocked down pretty much all vaccine mandates, even state. I didn't even know if the state level mandates even needed to make their way up to the Supreme Court. You cannot mandate free citizens to be vaccinated against their will. Now, again, there were some exceptions. The exception being healthcare workers. Exception, I believe, if they even had some military exceptions, because there is precedent there. But no, they don't. I mean, if you have opted out of the public school system, then the governor. I mean, you're paying your taxes. You're supporting the public school system, but the governor has very, very little authority and jurisdiction over your body, if any. So outside of you're breaking the law, an already established law. So I don't think we have to worry about it. Again, they may push that. They push stuff like, again, the question I think is, why do they push that? Why do they always defer to that? Well, remember, liberalism basically made the argument in the 1960s. It started with the New Deal, but it got on steroids with the Great Society. And that was this notion, when all said and done, LBJ's Great Society made the argument that the work needed to produce the Great Society is no longer in the hands of citizens. It's now in the hands of bureaucrats. It's now in the hands of literally an expert class. And this is very globalist. It's very modernist systems. economic, political systems are all operated by technologists and supposed experts. And so this is why liberals are constantly deferring to experts. It's because ever since the 1960s, we've pushed this notion that a great society, a wonderfully free and flourishing society, ironically, is one that is achieved through our submission to bureaucratic experts. They're the ones who are going to bring this society about. It's not individual. It's not faith, family, and freedom. It's a complete opposite of a subsidiary-based conservatism. So that to me is why liberals are so prone to this totalitarian approach to things. But it won't stand in court. You don't have to worry about that.
Dr. Turley, hello, it's Bruce Cook here from Southern California. Listen, I just wanted to talk to you for a second about what I think Letitia James has done. I don't think anyone's covered this before. I haven't seen any videos from anyone about it. Maybe they have. If they did, I missed it. But anyways, the projection that she engaged in against President Trump. It's amazing that the things that she was accusing President Trump of were the exact crimes that she herself was committing or has committed. So if you could do a video about a lot of the the fraud that she's committed, and point by point, and exactly what it is, and then what she accused President Trump of. The projection is amazing. I was just blown away by the fact that she's just projecting what she did, her sins. She's projecting it on President Trump and dragged him through all this hell. So, anyways, that's about it. I just want to pass that off to you. And thanks for the phone number here. I appreciate it that people can call in and leave comments and so forth. So, and thanks for all the videos. You're very inspiring. And I watch your videos every day, and I just can't thank you enough for all the good work. And it's like, wow, I've been watching your channel for years, and just so thankful for all the videos and everything and information you've given to us. And thank you, Dr. Steve. Take care. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you. Thank you. That means more than you ever know. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. She's being investigated for real estate, tax fraud, basically, through real estate, through shielding her money through real estate. It's insane. You're right. It's exactly right. Now, why is she projecting? Well, it's because she's a psychopath. That's what psychopaths do, Bruce. That seriously, I'm actually being totally serious. That's what psychopaths do. So there's multiple layers of analysis here. So first you have the Andrei Lubachevsky, Carvalho, Olavo de Carvalho, the Brazilian philosopher, and the Polish psychologist Andrei Lubachevsky. They both arrived to the same conclusion, coming at it from different angles, that liberals are fundamentally psychopaths. They both studied Marxists. Lubachevsky, Eastern European Marxists, and Olavo de Carvalho, Brazilian Marxists, and Latin American Marxists. They both studied Marxists their entire adult lives, and they both came to the conclusion that Marxists are psychopaths. Left-wing progressives ultimately are psychopaths. I'm not talking about, your milk toast, run-of-the-mill kind of center-left. I'm talking hardcore, like Letitia James. They are fundamentally psychopaths. And what psychopaths do is they're prone to malevolent manipulation. And if you can manipulate the masses, all the better. That's why they tend to be attracted to political outlets and organizations and platforms and so on. And one of the primary ways that psychopaths manipulate is through projection, where they impute to others the very sins that they're committing. And what projection does, the advantage of projection, is it allows you to admit a crime without admitting to the crime. So there was a crime, it happened, Letitia James is committing it. There was a crime, it happened, right? Tax fraud, so real estate shenanigans that she's involved in. But you're trying to frame someone else for it. Now it's not exact. It breaks down in that it's not her own property, it's someone else's property. But what the projector does is they take advantage of the fact that, yes, there is a crime, everyone sees it, tax fraud, but they're able to try to frame somebody else for that. And they're brilliant and they're masters at it. And they whip people up into a frenzy believing it. So it enables them to admit a crime without admitting to the crime. And then they get off on it, to be honest with you, because again, they're psychopaths. They are inclined, they are disposed toward malevolently manipulating as many people as they can. So yeah, I think you nailed it. I do, Bruce. I think you nailed. I think you psychologically analyzed and pinned perfectly what Letitia James is doing. She is the textbook definition of a psychopathic projector, and you nailed it. So yes, maybe we'll have to do a video of that now that formal investigation is being launched into her shenanigans. And with that, gang, that draws to an end another one of our wonderful, wonderful Thursday night lives. I will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 11 a.m. for our Friday live stream. God bless, gang.